Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to say, my name is Atossa Soltani. I'm the Global Director of Global Strategy for the Sacred Headwaters Initiative. And with me today is Manari Ushigua, spiritual leader of the Separa people, also a healer. And we're going to start with a ikara, with a song, Manari. This is the topic of this talk is protecting the heart of the world. And to begin, we're going to connect with our own hearts. So on that note, I'm going to ask Manari to open this session.
Hola. Buenas tardes.
Hello, good afternoon. I am Manari from the Amazon. I'm a Separa and I live in Ecuador. I'm going to sing an ikara, and I would like each and every one of you to raise, to stand up and touch your heart with your hands.
Necesitamos un poquito de cerrar nuestros ojos.
So we now need to close our eyes and focus on this space, because now we are in the future. And we've discussed much about the future. Well, this is the future, and we're going to connect the future with our heart. So please close your eyes and listen to this ikara.
Wichaja. Pueden sentar.
You can sit down.
Thank you, Manari, for opening our hearts. So, to connect with your heart, to connect your heart with the heart of the planet, I'm going to start the slideshow. So, the Amazon rainforest, as you heard from my colleague earlier today, Leila Salazar, is the world's largest tropical rainforest. It's larger than the continental United States and contains the forests of 9 countries. And within this area, about a third of it is indigenous territories. And the struggle over the last 30 years has been to help get these territories recognized and to support the rights of the indigenous peoples there. This area also contains the world's largest reservoir of fresh water, and it is home to 1/3 of all the species on Earth. So if you've heard a lot about the rainforest being the lungs of the world. I'm going to tell you a little bit about why it's the heart of the world. The Amazon River flows at 209,000 cubic meters per second at the mouth of the Amazon. And if you compare this flow to the world's next 6 largest rivers, the Amazon is actually slightly greater than the next 6 largest rivers combined. And this is only about 40% of the hydrological flow that's in the system. About 60% of that is basically being lifted up by trees. Every tree, and there's over 400 billion trees in the Amazon, lifts up 1,000 liters of water a day into the atmosphere. The Amazon rainforest beckons the moisture from the Atlantic. The trees lift it up. It rains over the Amazon, the trees lift it up, and it continues to cycle and pump that rain up until it gets to the Andes, and then it's lifted up over the continent and brings rain to the entire South American continent, including the rest of the world. So it is the pump of the hydrological system. It's the engine of the global weather system. And so if you think about Gaia being, we heard earlier today about Gaia from Dennis McKenna, and I'm so glad he brought it up. It's the 40th anniversary of the Gaia hypothesis. And we now know through our Earth Observatory that the Earth is a living system and that the rainforests are the vital organs. Here's a vapor flux model showing, and it'll get better in a few seconds, showing the flow of moisture across the planet that comes into the Amazon and is pumped, like your heart would pump blood through your veins. And that this flow is responsible for, in a river the biggest river on the planet is this Ariel River. And someone mentioned this earlier, but yes, 70% of the GDP of the continent is nourished by Amazon rain, and that this rain reaches all the way to United States. In fact, the loss of the Amazon would result in a collapse of the hydrological system in California and the western United States. So it is not only the lungs, it is the heart of the world. And what's even more incredible is that every year the Amazon River is losing phosphorus, which we heard about also. Dennis McKenna talked about phosphorus being essential for photosynthesis. Now, every year Amazon loses much of its phosphorus, and what you cannot imagine the intelligence of Gaia is that in the Sahara, dust storms bring dust filled with phosphorus-rich dust. That is something like 30 million tons of phosphorus-rich dust replenishes the Amazon and helps to promote photosynthesis. Now, if that isn't intelligence on a planetary scale, I don't know what is. So I want to get back to the Sacred Headwaters Initiative. It's an initiative born out of alliances that John Perkins mentioned, this alliance of indigenous peoples at the headwaters of the Amazon. The Amazon is vast, and the headwaters start in the Andes, in Peru and Ecuador and Colombia. There are many headwaters, but where the Amazon River begins is a region between the Napo and the Marañón, where we have been working with over 20 indigenous nations, forming a mega alliance covering an area of 60 million acres, working to protect this area from industrial scale resource extraction and predatory economies, the death economies. Now, these rivers are born in the glaciers in the Andes, in sacred mountains like Sangay and Cotopaxi and Tungurahua, these volcanoes, these active volcanoes that the indigenous people consider as their elders. The mountains are sacred, and they give birth to rivers that are sacred. Now, we, didn't know 25 years ago when I was one of the founders of Amazon Watch and Pachamama Alliance and others started working in this region. What we didn't know is that within the Amazon basin, this region has the highest biodiversity of plants, amphibians, birds, and mammals. In the area in red and orange, and you see the green outline of the Yasuni National Park, and then the red and orange include the areas of the highest biodiversity in the Amazon. Now, this area is also suffering a petroleum boom, and you would think that should be the last place on Earth where fossil fuels would be extracted, but in fact, we know now that especially in Ecuador, something like 70% of all the oil that's exported from Ecuador ends up in our cars in California. And so we have been fighting oil development, so-called development in this area which has left a toxic legacy, but it's not too late. There are areas in the central south and northern Peruvian Amazon have been areas where indigenous resistance has kept out oil companies for over 2 decades. And now we're seeing an onslaught of not just oil, but mining concession, mining for copper and gold and other minerals. The Sacred Headwaters Initiative is forming this alliance between indigenous peoples of Ecuador and Peru who were separated by an arbitrary border back in the 40s and are often the same indigenous nations on both sides of the border. They are over 350,000 plus. This is older data from the last census, so probably much larger than this, who inhabit this incredible area and are working together and have been working together in alliances. And they're just strengthening those alliances now around the principles of the sacred headwaters. The Shuar, Achuar, Siona, Sequoia, Shiwiar, Kandoshi, Wampis, Awahun, many of these indigenous nations have suffered, but they're also some of the strongest indigenous nations. They were never conquered. Indigenous nations who've never conquered, who have populations that are quite large, and who see themselves not as indigenous communities, not as indigenous peoples, but as original nations of the Amazon. And I think that's an important distinction. They are talking about governing their territories in accordance with their spiritual beliefs and their cosmology of the living forest. So the Sacred Headwaters Alliance includes the indigenous federations, Comfeñai from Ecuador, IDESEP from Peru, COICA, which is the coordinating body of indigenous nations of all of the Amazon, Tabea is here from COICA, and also their allies, Fundación Pachamama, Amazon Watch, and the Pachamama Alliance. And now I want to tell you, I'm going to pass it on to Manari, who's one of the leaders of the Sacred Headwaters. He's actually part of the working group of the Wisdom Keepers, who are helping define why sacred. What is sacred? What is the meaning of working along this river basin as an alliance? And in the heart of this so we're working in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, which is the heart of the planet. And now in the heart of this Sacred Headwaters is the Separa territory, which is only accessible by plane, no roads there, and it's on the edge of the Yasuni National Park. So Manari.
Gracias.
Thank you. Well, our territory, as you could see in that picture, is, well, as you can see in the picture, is a jungle, an undestroyed, unspoiled jungle. We have oil and uranium, gold underground, and medicine and timber, untainted water. So we have all these resources, and this jungle for us represents this strengthening and caring of the heart of the Amazon and our heart. Because we, as human beings in general, we are destroying our heart, we are destroying our life. That's what we want to prevent. We don't want to happen. So I was listening with concern about this, the scientific study made by modern science, and I'm not going to answer to that because it touched my emotions. But the jungle and the rainforest and our territory, we are defending it with all of our strength, with all the spiritual beings there, with all of our mountains. We're doing that, although we, as the Separa nation, are on the verge of extinction as well, in danger of disappearing. We have 32 dialects, and we used to be 200. We were thousands of people, and now there's only 575 people living together there in 375,000 hectares. And they left us a very meager space, and again, we are on the road to destruction, to disappearance. But we are a world that have a very deep knowledge of this spiritual world, and each one of the plants, the rivers, the clouds, the mountains, the space. And so we don't want to disappear with all of our knowledge. We want to share it with everyone else, with the peoples that are going to keeping on existing on this world. We are strong, we are determined and resolved to share our experience with those that are going to keep on living. These plants you can see on the screen, these plants are alive. There's life in these plants, and this is why we talk about a living rainforest. Everything around us is living. They have a spirit, they have a conscience, they know what they want, how they want to live, how they want to pump clean air from their heart to the world. And this comes from this rainforest. Each leaf you see in the picture is working, same as we are. So there's no separation here. There's just one unity. If our heart beats, then their heart is beating as well. And this is why we cannot study anymore how our body is working and the cells and how these plants work. No, now it is time. It's not that time anymore. It is time to change the way we relate to the earth, basically. And I also heard the scientist who said he didn't know about the future. He doesn't know what's going to happen, what's going to happen with the beings, with the living beings on the face of Earth. And we've got an example here. You can see this butterfly on the screen. Well, this butterfly lived for millions of years, same as we did, and now it is transforming into another life, into a plant. But it's not that this butterfly species is disappearing. No, it's going to live as a plant, but it's going to keep on living on this earth. And this is happening with many species. But before this happened, these species, they liked to eat meat, but at some point they changed and started eating leaves from the trees and extracting water from the flowers, and that made it much easier for them to become a different being. And this is happening with a lot of larvae and snakes and fish. There's fish that used to live under the water. Now they are turning into animals live in the jungle. That's happening right now in our territory. This is what climate change is about, the misuse of natural resources and the advances of science and technology, and so on and so forth. So there's also a lot of talk about the future here, and we don't know what the future holds. But the thing is, that future is now. That future is today. We are living that future. There's no future beyond. There's two things in time. There's the day and the night. And that day, when it's gone, then we sleep, we rest, we practice our death, and the day after it is another day. And so that's the future already. So whatever happens now in this day, we are starting to live it, and that's the future we need to discuss. So what we are doing with all of our actions and practices, and I'm speaking this message from the vision of the Yauna heart, the ayahuasca heart, and this is what this event is about. So that's what ayahuasca is. Ayahuasca is not to dig deeper into us and understand what we are. What ayahuasca teaches us is how we should value the invisible part of life. The visible part and the invisible part. We forgot about the invisible part long ago, many years ago. But we have not forgotten in the Separa world. We still have that connection. We're always dreaming. Ayahuasca is a way to connect with the spiritual world. But on planet Earth, everyone living on this planet practice every night. And what's that practice? Well, dreaming. We dream. And when we dream, we are entering the spiritual world. That is the most sacred part of life. And that's what we really need to take care of. But we have forgotten that. We only take care of things we can see. And that's the greatest mistake we have made as human beings. And if we understand that, and if we learn to dream again, things are going to change. We are going to change. There's no being beyond us that is going to change us. I'm sorry, but that doesn't exist. We are beings, spiritual beings, and the gods, we are the gods, the human beings. The solution is in our being, is within us, here and now. So the changes we are seeing with the animals have started also with human beings. The change started with the way we feed ourselves. Our visions in our visions, in the yauna ceremonies, when we enter the jungle, the forest, we've seen what our elders told us, and they are not alive anymore. They died long ago, and they say that the fastest change, the ones that are aligned as human beings for this change, are vegans. Vegans, that's what they say, our elders.
Yo nunca en mi vida he conocido quiénes son los veganos.
And in the beginning we thought, well, who are the vegans? And then I heard vegans were no longer eating meat, and then came vegetarians, and then meat eaters. So this is why I admire these people that are quitting. So the elders say that the vegans are going to transform the world. It is not that the planet is going to explode or anything, no, nothing like that, but there's going to be a transformation. From a being, we're going to turn into another being. We can become a plant, we can become an animal, other species, because that experience has been lived in my culture as a Separa nation. We appear as humans, we turn into monkeys, we live in the animal world, and then we go again to the human world. Now we are in the human world, but we don't know where we're going to. The secret of life is that, not knowing where we're walking to, where we're going to. So I don't want to scare you with this message. I don't want you to weep or to cry or to worry. What I want to convey with this message is that we should curb, we should stop this change. Changes should happen more slowly. We are kind of in a rush, and we kind of want to exploit everything on Earth now. That's what we're doing, for that change to happen more quickly, and we don't want that. We want the change to be slower. So this is why we and my colleague was talking about this initiative, Sacred Headwaters. All sacred waters we are proposing, we're saying to states that the polluted rivers should be cleansed, and having serious policies, not just policies in order to be to become president. We don't want that. We want serious commitments in order to help changes to happen in a slower manner. That's one thing. And then the sacred part, the invisible part of life, the invisible part of life for human beings and other beings, other animals and plants. We also have to work on that part. We need to learn how to dream. We need to remember our dreams. And if we do that in the world, then the change will stop. So this is why the Separa world, we are guiding and telling many people that arrive to our community, to our forest, that they need to connect with the spirit of time, the Tawano, as we call it. They need to connect with the Tawano of time, because we have turned time into minutes and hours and seconds, and that leads to a very fast passage of time, and we want to stop that time. Many people ask, how do you do that? Well, just don't look at the time, and then things are going to slow down, and our aging is going to slow down as well, and our knowledge is going to get more mature, and we're going to be wiser, and we're going to have more knowledge. But if we now are being handled by the spirit of time. This is why things happen so fast. You want to do something, and then the seconds went by and the time is gone and we can't do nothing. So that's where the secret of life is, how to handle the spirit of time. We are the spirit of time. It's not like the spirit of time is floating in the air. No, it's us. So we can stop it, we can slow down what happens around us. And this is the message I want to leave you with. So we should reflect and think about this message. We, as the Separa culture, we don't know for how long are we going to be in the rainforest, because there's significant threats on us. There's transnational companies who say they need our resources for the development of the country, but we stay there. We resist. We're fighting. There's the Lila company. There's Lila. There's Atossa. There's these alliances we've seen in the picture, and we are sending this message all together. And even if we disappear, I would like you to keep on thinking about what I told you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manari. And I will mention that the living forest is a concept that is gaining recognition, and we hope that it gets more recognition. The forest is made up of spirits, animals. Every species is a living being, and only 5% of all the plant species in the Amazon have been documented so far. And the indigenous people are the scientists. With every elder that dies, an entire library is lost. The elders we meet in the Amazon, some of them know as many as 1,500 species of medicinal plants that only exist in their forest, and then they're gone. Even most of the people who live in this part of the Amazon may know 400 or 500 species of plants. This is knowledge. The knowledge of how to live in harmony with this forest is something that's being lost rapidly. The Sacred Headwaters Initiative is working to declare these territories. Indigenous peoples are declaring their own territories as sacred, off limits to mining and oil and roads and hydroelectric dams and other forms of extractive industrial scale so-called development. And they're putting forth life plans, something that maybe our world could use, life plans. These are strategic visions for the long-term plans for how to live in harmony, how to have a holistic vision of a future of an indigenous nation that is basically seeking well-being and harmony, health, happiness, not development, not growth, not this linear concept of progress that's consuming life. And so the indigenous peoples are developing these beautiful visionary plans and we heard some of them even in Brazil, Kaxinawa have their life plan. Indigenous peoples are having a plan for the conservation, protection, restoration, clean, healthy environment, clean water, harmony, peace among communities, peace with nature, indigenous ancestral knowledge, bilingual education, people who are healthy living in healthy forests. And so part of the Sacred Headwaters is compiling life plans of every one of these indigenous nations and communities into a bioregional life plan that seeks to protect this area and have it be a model for the ecological transition, a transition to an ecological civilization, something the rest of the world needs. So in sum, the Sacred Headwaters Initiative's Territories for Life is seeking to create a stewardship vision for the future of this region, protect 60 million acres of the most biodiverse rainforest, support life plans and livelihoods, and change the frame from development to buen vivir, living well, well-being, and in the process, leaving also 5 billion barrels of fossil fuels in the ground, which together make 2 billion metric tons of avoided emissions. I just put that out there not because indigenous people are seeking to monetize that through any kind of carbon, but to just say that this is their contribution. They feel that they're making this contribution to the future stability of our climate. And today there is protests on the 5th day of blockades on the roads in the Amazon, where indigenous people have shut down oil production in one of the oil blocks. And they're fighting to keep an area that looks just like that, which is also Manari's territory, from the onslaught of Chinese oil companies that have mortgaged this forest because the Ecuadorian government borrowed something like between 60 and 70 billion dollars of debt that went missing, most of it, corrupt debt, in exchange for getting oil and mineral resources. They got that debt from China. In order to pay it back, they've agreed to let the Chinese companies drill, dig, and destroy this area. So indigenous peoples have their solutions. This is part of a solution that could be a solution for all of the planet. If 80% of all fossil fuels have to stay underground for us to meet a 2-degree limit, which already is too much for the planet, then the Amazon should be, the heart of the world should be the first place where fossil fuels are kept in the ground. And this is a map of where fossil fuels, not just in the sacred headwaters, but in the entire Amazon basin. This is the agreement that we need for our future climate agreement. This is the agreement we need, to leave fossil fuels in the ground, especially starting with the most biodiverse places on Earth. Touching the jaguar. The jaguar is a symbol of forest. It's the spirit of the forest. This area also contains the largest population of jaguars in the Amazon, and a sacred totem to most of the indigenous cultures here. So in sum, I think we're standing on a crossroads. On the one hand, the future of the sacred headwaters and much of the Amazon is at stake. The current financial death economy is converting resources at a faster and faster rate. We are advancing a lot on land rights, on indigenous rights, and world knowing about the rainforest, but we're not having much success in stopping this massive machine that's converting forests and life into money. So we're at a crossroads. We have to choose. Can we choose economies based on the flourishing of life, the well-being of people and their relationship with the natural world? It does come down to feeling ourselves as cells in the body of a living Gaia. Gaia is a living planet. We are cells in that living planet. Can we be cells that support life, or are we going to be more like cancer cells and allow the destruction of living systems of the planet? I think that is the ultimate philosophical question. But it's also a practical question. Indigenous peoples do have the know-how, and they live collectively. Their unit of decision-making is the collective, is the community. And I think for this community, for the ayahuasca community, touching into this means changing everything about the way we live, from everything where our money goes, what we consume, to how we see the world and how we join forces, from local politics to national to international to solidarity networks, and changing the definition of the economy to one that's based on flourishing of life, not development, not growth. And I would leave you with this meme that's been circulating online for about 5 years, and it's one of my favorite memes, that we are not fighting for nature. We are nature itself, defending itself. We are cells in the body of Gaia, waking up to be the immune system of the living Gaia. And this is the planet that we want to leave our future generations. So I invite you to get involved with the Sacred Headwaters Initiative, with whatever way communities you belong to. Bring those communities. And if you are in the medicine community, join forces. Every medicine center should be supporting conservation and restoration where it's doing medicine anywhere in the world. So let's join hands and let's remember that this is really about rights of nature. It's about rights of future generations, and it's about choosing life, and it's about changing the DNA of our system to opt for life, the primacy of the web of life. So thank you. So Manari would like to close with an ikara.
Para cerrar esta
To close this conversation, I would ask you to stand again. I can see some people who look tired, so please stand up. Stand up. Let's breathe. Let's breathe in. Again. Thank you. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. If you're standing near somebody, please hold hands. Let's connect. So that we can have a small vision of what our future is going to look like. Our future is now. Let's close our eyes. This is an ikara of the wind.
wame alpa manda chai Vairamondui to cuello yaitame calma chai mame Pukune Ri 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 ri. Vamos a respirar.
Let's breathe. Again, let's breathe. Again, let's breathe and open our eyes. And now we're going to hug the future, which is here and now. Thank you.